Hi, this is Olivier Gruner with Gruner Tactical. So today we're going to be talking about self-defense, especially against knife. And then we're going to talk about against handgun. Okay. Many of us in the old days, we learned the techniques to fight against a knife. So block, doing any kind of movements, try to get the knife away from the person who's holding it, right? So we try to grab it, to do a lock, a wrist lock, or an arm lock, it doesn't matter what it is, and try for the person to drop the knife. Well, we realize that if we don't train this every day, when the real thing happens in the street, we're gonna be behind the curve. So now we decide to do something so different. We're gonna learn the tactics. And that's good for everyone, guys. It's not only good for people who train every day, for kids, it's really good for everyone. So what I'm talking about is, for this person to stab me, he needs to have a certain distance. You see, this is his arm is totally fully extended, right? And if you look at it, the knife is not even touching me. So for him to be able to touch me, he needs to move maybe a couple inches, and then he's going to create a little bit some damage, right? So the point we're making here is for you to keep the distance from that person. Can you imagine if the person is coming at me, this way, he does all that kind of fancy move, and he starts to stab me, but I'm keeping 3 feet away from the person. The guy's not going to be able to touch me with the knife. So the point is, distance is the most important thing. So your tactics is to keep the distance between the person holding the knife and yourself. So how do we do this? Running is a good one. So if the person comes at you, he's like, he sees you as a soft target, and he comes and he has his hand, holding this way, so you can't even see the knife, but you know the weapons. It might be a knife, or or maybe you see it, and he comes at you. What you're going to do, you're going to turn around and start running. Running is so important. Keeps that distance. Another thing too is you can't kick the person. If the person comes after you and you let him get as close as this, look at this. This is easy for me to stab the person. Don't let him close to you. Still keep that distance. So the person cannot come and slash you or even stab you. A kick is good. Now, another thing too, for your tactics, I see a lot of people on getting stabbed, especially you see that on YouTube, and there was a car. Why don't you put the car between the person and yourself? So now the person, it doesn't matter, I can't stab the person from here, see? Whatever I do, it's not gonna work. You can put a tree. You can put some fence. So example, you're running, the guy is catching up to you, you run over a fence, there's a fence. And you can stop on the other side of the fence. Now, maybe the guy is going to jump over, maybe the guy is going to stop. Who knows? But if he stops, there's no way he can stab you because there's a fence there. And that's the most important thing, to keep the distance from the knife, from the person with the knife. So, what's the distance? Well, it depends on how long his arms are, and the knife. If it's a machete, it's going to be a little bit further away. If it's a sword, it's the same thing, okay? So there's two things. There's staying away or being extremely close. But we're not going to go to the closest because your tactics should be only one thing that you have to think about it. If somebody attacks you with a knife, is to keep your distance. That's it. That's all you have to think about. So you don't need to learn all that fancy move. Just think about one thing. The guy has a knife. You see a guy with a knife over there. He's looking at you. And say, okay, I need to keep my distance. This is the first thing you do. Whatever you use to keep that distance between that person and you, it's up to you. It could be a car. It could be jump on your bike and just go. It could be anything. Again, to keep that distance. Really, really important. Okay? And then you'll be safe. Because the person can't even touch you. And that's the most important thing. All the fancy moves that we teach, it's great, but this is at the last. It's good for the cops, the poor cops. You just think about the law enforcement When somebody has a knife now, you know, a knife or no knife, you know, they start with no knife, and the guys, they have a knife maybe inside, and they have to go hand-to-hand combat, because the problem that we have is law enforcement, when they have a situation, they have to stop the threat. For us, we don't have to stop the threats. We can move and go. Bye-bye. Who cares about the threats, you know, as a civilian? But as a law enforcement, it's different. They have to stop the threats so nobody gets hurt. And that's kind of a tricky, because these guys, now they have to learn how to deal with very close quarter, which is not easy, and it can be extremely tricky. You can start, you know, with hand-to-hand combat, so some punches, boom, and then suddenly you got punch, throw, and then it becomes a stab. That changed the whole fight. And the police officer didn't see it, or couldn't see it, or didn't realize what was going on, and then he gets stabbed. And that's a sad part of it. So when you're a civilian, you have the advantage is to bail out. And that's the best thing to do. To play a hero, yeah, if it's great, you know, I don't think, you know, we should, you know, always bail out. You know, sometimes if you see somebody, you know, especially somebody like a kid or a grandma, or somebody's really weak, you know, weaker than the person, obviously, you know, as a good Samaritan, maybe you can go and defend, but just be ready to know that you can get stabbed, and it can take, you know, 30 seconds just to go, and just, that's it, you know, just 30 to 90 seconds. So just be aware of that. So, especially if you don't have the tools with you, okay? Few things that I will recommend, that if you get into a situation with a person, is try to find out what kind of weapon he has, which is really hard. Because, you know, right now you don't know if I have a knife, if I have a gun. I'm fighting, I'm like this, I'm in the street, I've been partying, and I'm like, yeah, and then I get into a fight, bah, 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 and suddenly, boom, and I have a knife. That changes the odds for that person. So you gotta be careful, and you never know. So this is for the knife situation. Now we're gonna go into the gun situation, which is a little bit different.